Well, this year, Israelis mark the 52nd anniversary of the Six-Day War and Jerusalem Day, the time when Jerusalem was reunited under Israeli sovereignty. A lot has happened since then. The world has seen the Iron Curtain fall and global terrorism rise. Through it all, at least one alliance has thrived: the United States and Israel. President Trump has made that bond even stronger by moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing Israeli sovereignty on the Golan Heights. As John Wagi explains, although this bond has been tested, it stood the test of time.
The foundation of the U.S.-Israel alliance began in the Six-Day War. After Israel took back its biblical heartland, including Jerusalem in 1967, the whole world took notice. Israel's friends and millions of Americans rejoiced, but Israel's enemies began to call the U.S. the big Satan and Israel the little Satan.
When Israel won the Six-Day War, it was huge, because you went from anticipating disaster. It wasn't that long after the Holocaust, and perhaps another massacre of the Jewish people, to an incredible victory.
Ambassador Dory Gold is the former director of Israel's foreign ministry.
I remind you, in global terms, the U.S. had been bogged down in Vietnam, trying to contain the spread of Soviet power in the Far East. And here, all of a sudden, Israel stands firm and not only defeats its Arab neighbors, but defeats clients of the Soviet Union who were using Soviet weaponry. So it was a victory for Israel. It was the survival of the Jewish people, and it was an enormous victory for the West.
Middle East expert Joel Rosenberg says Israel's defeat of the Soviet proxies woke up the White House under President Lyndon Johnson.
Suddenly, this little scrappy Israel was seen as an outpost, a frontal forward position of Western democracy that had the capacity to defeat Soviet MiGs, Soviet tanks, Soviet tactics, Soviet-trained soldiers. So suddenly, the United States thought, maybe Israel's more important than we thought geopolitically. And it was quite galvanizing to what became the most important alliance in the history of the 20th century, the alliance between the United States and Israel.
President Johnson told the Russians no when they called for Israel to give up all of the territory recaptured in the war. Johnson made clear that Israel would have secure and recognized boundaries, a policy expanded by Presidents Reagan and Bush.
And that became the basis of American diplomacy for decades. And only recently some people talk about a full Israeli withdrawal. That would be contrary to Israel's national security today, and it certainly was contrary to Israel's national security back then.
In the half-century since the war, Israel has become a military power, as threats around it have also grown. Iran pursues nuclear ambitions while calling for Israel's destruction. Its terror arm in Lebanon, Hezbollah, has more than 100,000 missiles poised on Israel's north. And the old bear, Russia, is back in the region, looking for a foothold. Gold warns Iran's ties to nuclear North Korea and the Mexican drug cartels put the threat on the U.S. doorstep.
The entire Iranian ballistic missile program, to a large extent, is connected with North Korea's ballistic missile program. Both of us have an interest in making sure that the proliferation of ballistic missiles to rogue states be stopped.
As Europe becomes more Muslim, the whole idea of Western civilization is shifting. Rosenberg believes the changes could mean more fulfillment of Bible prophecy in the Middle East.
One of the worst-case scenarios for Israel is if Russia and or Iran end up controlling what's left of Syria as it continues to implode. If it's Iran, you'll have an apocalyptic, genocidal Shia theocracy just over the border. If the Russians ask the Iranians to leave, you still have Russia, a nuclear-armed power, right on Israel's border. And according to Bible prophecy, particularly Ezekiel 38 and 39, we know Russia and Iran will form an alliance together against Israel and will come against Israel from the north in the end times. I'm not saying we're there yet, but the trend lines continue to be consistent with the preparation for those Gog and Magog prophecies.
John Waggy, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Alpha, Omega.